Welcome to FM Live. I am Brandon with Flyin Miata. Today we're going to talk about power, everybody's favorite topic. This is kind of a more boring type of power, but power nonetheless. So we are going to talk about more lightweight lithium batteries. So as always, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them at some point, hopefully live, but if not, afterwards. So I've already talked about this a little bit in other videos, but I'll go through it again quickly. A lot of people, understandably, are scared about lithium batteries. Aren't those the kinds of batteries that catch on fire? Well, lithium and lithium ion is kind of a big blanket term that covers a bunch of different chemistries of batteries. So the lithium polymer batteries, which you probably have in your pocket right now, are the ones that are a little more prone to thermal runaway and can catch on fire and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying your cell phone is unsafe, but that is the kind of chemistry that has had issues in the past. This is not that chemistry. So this is a lithium iron phosphate battery, or LiPo, or LiFePO4, lithium iron phosphate. So these are not quite as energy dense as a lithium polymer that's in your pocket, but they are still energy dense, and they are much more stable, and they're much more durable, so they can last through more discharge cycles. And again, thermally stable. They're not going to have a thermal runaway situation, that kind of thing. So the other argument that can be made is that a bunch of high-end brands, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, McLaren, have been using LiPo, lithium iron phosphate batteries, in their cars for a while now. So all of that said, the battery that we're talking about today is the Antigravity U1R battery. So this is a direct drop-in for an NA and NB. We already have a direct drop-in for the NC and the ND. We also have the super lightweight Melee kit here for the ND that is, I mean, bonkers light. This one is 17 pounds less than the stock battery. So stock battery is 25-ish. Oh, that's probably a dangerous thing to do. This one is 9 pounds. So it boggles the mind, quite frankly. It doesn't really make sense when you pick it up. So there is that. Lithium actually has a bunch of advantages. So these are more expensive on the front end. I'm not going to argue with you there. They are more durable than a lead acid battery. Typically you get an 8 to 10 year lifespan out of these guys. And that's because they can discharge more deeply without damaging the battery, and they also can go through more discharge cycles without damaging the battery. Along with that lifespan, they do have a much longer warranty, so these do have a 5-year warranty on them. They also have a higher resting voltage than your generic lead acid. They have a much lower self-discharge rate. So it's about 2% on these guys, 2% per month, excuse me, and it's 30% per month on a lead acid. So if you have a car that sits for a while, assuming you don't have any kind of parasitic drains, then this will maintain its voltage and be more likely to start the car in 3 months when you go back than a lead acid that's not sitting on a trickle charger. So the other thing to kind of bear in mind with the lithium is that because it can be discharged more deeply without damaging the battery, the capacity, the amp hours in the battery, can be a little misleading. So this guy is about 20 amp hours. This one doesn't list it, but the stock ones are about 40 amp hours. But you can discharge more deeply, again, with a lithium. So the lithium is roughly double that. And there's a little bit of fuzzy in that number, but this one's about 20 amp hours, which is roughly comparable to 40 amp hours in a lead acid battery. So it also has a little computer in there protecting the battery potentially from you. We've all been there. But this will protect from over discharge, overcharge, short circuit, thermal protection. It balances the cells in the batteries. It basically keeps it so it's healthy and it's going to last as long as possible. And it comes with a remote control. Why do you need a remote control for a battery? That's a really weird thing. Well, I agree. But it comes with a remote control and also a button on top of the battery because it has their restart technology. So that's built-in jump starting. So what that means is that if you leave your lights on, the battery is going to feed power to the lights until it gets down to a certain point, and the battery is going to say, okay, I'm going to disconnect myself internally. There's nothing that happens outside. I'm going to disconnect myself internally so that the battery is not dead when you come back. So you come back to the car, the battery is completely dead. Absolutely nothing happens when you turn the key. So you either push the button on top of the battery or you push the button on your remote, and you actually get two of these guys. And it reconnects, you start the battery, and you go on your way. And you remember, maybe I should remember to turn the lights off next time. So just little things. It comes with a little handle that clips in here to make it easy to carry, which is kind of ironic because you can carry it nearly with 2 fingers. So, and then it comes with the battery terminals. So they're just bolt on here. You bolt the terminals on, and then it's a direct drop-in. So again, direct drop-in for stock. Same size, has the right size terminals. Easy peasy. So, drawbacks for these guys, the price. But again, that's debatable because they last a very long time. If this is a car that's not used it's not used frequently, great, because low discharge rate, so this one's actually going to be better than this one. If it is a car that is parked outside in the cold, and truly cold, Floridian's 45 degrees does not count as cold. If it's truly cold and it's parked outside in the cold for a long time, that is where lithiums can suffer a little bit. So if that is your use case, I would not recommend a lithium battery. Otherwise, track car, daily driver, weekend car, fun car, whatever, they work extremely well for them. So we got a handful of questions. Excuse me. So I will go through those and then we'll see if we have any live questions. So do these batteries require different charging or battery maintenance equipment? Yes. So these batteries are not literally able to sulfate, and most lead-acid chargers do have a desulfate function in the charger, most good ones anyway. That is awesome for a lead-acid battery. It is going to damage a lithium battery. So you do not want to use a lead-acid charger on a lithium battery. We do have a lithium-specific charger that works quite well. The flip side of that, if you don't need a charger for a lead-acid, excuse me, in your car for a lead-acid battery, you also will not need it with the lithium battery. And again, because of the low discharge rate, it is actually less likely that you're going to need a charger for your lithium battery than for your lead-acid battery. All that said, if you do have to charge it, you do need a specific charger. So how do total versus usable amp hours differ between lithium and lead-acid batteries? And I kind of touched on this. So again, the really short, kind of 90% answer is that you can double the number of amp hours in a lithium battery to get to the comparable number of amp hours in a lead-acid battery, or comparable size of battery. Again, 40 amp hours in lead-acid, 20 amp hours in lithium, roughly comparable. Not exact, but roughly comparable. How might switching to a lithium battery impact a high wattage sound system? So I don't think it'll make much of a difference. Oh no, I do know. It will make a difference. It will offset that heavy sub you have in the trunk. No, functionally speaking, I really don't think it's going to make much of a difference. With that capacity, neither one of these has a ton of capacity. So if you have a stereo that draws a ton of amps and you run it for a long time with the ignition or with the engine off, you're going to drain both of these. Obviously, that's still a thing that you have to pay attention to. These have higher resting voltage, but that really shouldn't make a difference, partially for that reason and partially because it's still within the normal operating. Resting voltage of this is still slightly less than what your alternator is going to go out once it's spinning fast, or put out once it's spinning fast enough. So I wouldn't say it makes any kind of real big difference. Okay, so that was the high wattage sound system. What makes the battery so much lighter than the stock one? That is a question for someone who's smarter than me. These have a bunch of lead in there. Lead is very dense. Lead is heavy. This has not lead in there. So it is lighter for that reason. That's about as in-depth of an answer as I can give you on that one. Apologies. But the end result is, yes, a dramatically lighter battery. Will this work in NDs? So literally, sure, it will, because it has the right output and all that kind of stuff. Practically speaking, it is a little bit physically smaller than an ND, so it's going to require a little bit of problem solving. Also, it's totally pointless because we have the 51R battery, which is a drop-in for the ND, and that one will work fine. We also have, again, the Melee kits here for if you want to lose all of the weight ever. And that is just mind-boggling. Does work with naturally aspirated cars and BBR turbo cars. All right, can these be recharged? Yes, they are recharged every time you drive your car. That's what your alternator does. They can also be recharged with a charger that you plug into the wall as long as you use a lithium iron phosphate specific charger. As mentioned before, do not use a lead acid charger on these. It will damage the battery. What makes up the jumpstart feature? Buttons and some magic juju that happens inside the box. I don't know the specifics of how it works, but it does work. And it is incredibly simple. Do they move around in the original battery holder? No more than the original battery would. So it's still, again, it's the same physical size as long as your battery holder has all of its parts and is assembled properly and the original parts and blah, blah, blah. Then yeah, it'll stay in there just like the original battery does. Even better because it has a lot less inertia that's going to try to slap it around everywhere because it's so light. Okay, and that is it. So thank you very much for stopping by as always. If you guys have more questions, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them. If you have recommendations for videos, please let us know. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff to all of our different channels. And we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.